Hello, this is Jason Mundragon, where I am taking on everything in the universe and making it comprehensible to the collective consciousness. In this episode I will be continuing our understanding of the known universe. And so, let's get to it. I've taken us on the journey through the collective universe, now I will present the outer universe. Though the universe exists as a singular whole, we must realize that the concepts of growth and destruction are one and the same. Both must be present in order to finalize consciousness. Though we go throughout our day conceptualizing what is good and bad, both present to us an opportunity to realize absolute truth. An example would be any of the aggressive acts that we have inflicted upon each other throughout our histories. Those of us awakened to this, and set in motion realizations that sought to prosper in new light. It's very true the saying, when good people do nothing, evil prospers. Yet finding our way through this will take an elevating of our consciousness. It does no good to simply avoid that which we see as harmful, for those energies are us, collectively. Cleansing come from acceptance to this, acceptance to our intricacies that we actively try to block out from our belief structures as something other than ourselves. Polarizing oppositions may have been good initially for our progress, but it can no longer be sustained for our future development. If we are to become a great awakening, all that we are, must be known. I caution those of us who do not wish to look at the negativity in the world. This could just be that you are on a path that is either seeking to find only goodness for lifetimes, or seeking to cleanse some darker past life of yours at this time. You will get very little out of this episode's information, levels of disbelief and non-confrontations will form. The outer universe. Next, we look at the realms in the outer universe, which are the higher dimensions of dark and destruction. Should an unfortunate spirit become stranded within these realms, it would only be because they possessed awareness at one point in time and through intense number of chaotic events throughout many cycles have turned inward and contorted in their concepts. Entropy is most attracted to powerful beings, in this I mean spiritually aware ones. The hardest of us to corrupt, yet over time and without the proper strength of the collective universe even these great beings may deteriorate and lose the love they hold towards all beings. Some of the greatest spiritual leaders have met unfortunate ends due to the influence entropy has over our spiritual nature. We generally misdirect what caused these deaths, because we never really take the time to look deeper and see the true influences. Should spirits end up in the higher realms of the outer universe, it's usually due to their connection to the collective and how entropy will seek now to feed off their knowledge. Without the continued input of the ever-evolving consciousness, however, these outer realms will slowly deteriorate the spirit and distort a soul's awareness. The unconscious level of the omnipotent design may be hard for us to comprehend. We are children of light and dark, our very spiritual bodies both physical and spiritual possess the struggle of existence's ancient war. Imagine Source as a grand master at meditation, though perfect and all-knowing with complete harmony and spirit, the physical body continues its life/death battle. The microorganism within the Grand Master's body live and die with very little understanding that they are a part of something grander. The Grand Master does acknowledge the microorganism because he is consumed in the bliss of being one with the universe, but his connection with them is one of curiosity with little need to interfere with their existence. Taking this now to the unconsciousness of the omnipotent design, we must understand that over time in the course of our existence we have created belief systems that honor what we consider good, and oppose what we call evil, never confronting the fact that they are one and the same and it is only a human concept. Unlike the Grand Master, the omnipotent consciousness is awareness in all places within the universe where organisms thrive. When areas no longer possess the flow of its force it is still part of omnipotence, however it falls into an unconscious state. In this unconscious state it is born into a life of its own, cut off from the ever-evolving consciousness it recreates what it believes to be a functioning system only to contort what is truth. Its goals are then to formulate and mimic what it once was, even though it lacks the connection to the evolving consciousness. Within the lower realms of the outer universe, we have the dimensions of fears and internalizations. There are many of us that reside within these dimensions. Here irrational and chaotic fears take over and hinders our every move in life. Our beliefs that we are physical and will only have a short time to achieve anything pushes us into a frenzy. Chaos seeps into our powers of creation and fears begin to manifest themselves around us. Here we find pessimism, hopelessness, and depravity in its worst forms. Still a being of creation, we fuel the outer universe with abilities and it in turn creates our hell. Within the realm of fear, we are living somewhat, yet we aren't alive and passionate, simply moving through the motions accepting life as we believe it to be. We can live many lives in this state, searching for more and never having the ability to connect back to the collective universe. In the realm of internalizations, our fears have finally taken root at our cores and when we pass on, we fall into a place where other broken spirits have unconsciously collected pushing us further into the dark. Here we find the troubled specters hovering about trying so hard to reconnect to the living, tormenting and harming others in extreme case. This soupy realm resides like an undercurrent to the physical realm and has been known at many times to influence the nature of the unconscious spirits. When looking at the great devastation and genocides that have taken place on entire continents and have never been spiritually cleansed, we could begin to see why it's so hard to rise above our conditions in life. Here within the outer realms of the lower dimensions we have over time fell into a collective subconscious state. Subconscious, because it was self-created with the unity of our screams and fears for so long. We possess a tether that has been spoken of by many astral projector. The cord is of varied strength depending upon your connection to the outer universe, and we will always possess this if we possess egoistic attachments, even when we slip far into an unconscious state. This tether was designed by the holy hierarchy to pull us back onto the path. There are just two scenarios where this tether will break: if we fully awaken and loose ego attachments, or if we sink into the higher realms of the outer universe. While in the realm of fear we still have some amount of choice to decide to pull ourselves free of devastation, in the realm of internalizations this is not an option. We merge so intensely with the collective subconscious state that all wrong beliefs and view become our only reality, supported with all other lost spirits. Our spiritual cords are thinned and so translucent that only the powers of an aware being can stimulate it back and begin to assist our pathway back towards spiritual healing. This realm was self-created by us through our fear to survive on a planet that has eaten, beaten, and killed us for millions of years. It has been made more powerful with the evolution of humans. Our advanced states of unconsciousness have created a very real hell that seeks to grow with every spirit it assimilates. The more we are made to fear, the more it will impose that fear into our living space. If you will note, when looking at the elemental chart, dark resides in the center. We can understand how it has influence on all connected kingdoms. But it is contained and surrounded at once, but constantly finding new ways to spread itself. Our domain is just above dark, and in the stages of formation, we are responsible for realizing the end result and deciding our fate. Each of the realms in the outer universe seeks to reflect its opposite realm in the collective, with intensely different effects. Order is a place that pulls together the omnipotent consciousness and connected spiritual beings. This will allow us to reach out and connect to the design of creation. Entropy seeks to replicate this design but fails without source's ever-flowing force. So instead it feeds off itself, depleting its energy, and then seeks to find more in desperation. It isn't a struggle to the death because the collective universe is creation materialized. This means that should events ever lead to the point when dark over-encompasses light, all that is light will boil to a point in creation, and then the will of the omnipotent consciousness will simply materialize again in a great flowing to begin the cycle anew. It is for us to end this cycle when we finally realize the why and how. To clarify some items, the plane of dark is of consciousness. We can say over 0.5% of it still resides in consciousness, due to the nature of dark, being a force that holds light in place for formation. It was a root gateway for the outer universe to seep into and infect. This infection is underway within our galaxy and reverberates throughout. One can say it was inevitable, since through this obstacles we are made to grow. However, we are also made to fail it. We do not become active participants. The outer universe and entropy can be synonymous, for current understandings. True entropy is a realization we need not focus on at this time, however I will hint at it being the void to which this universe manifested into. Thus the higher war that the absolute takes on as it continues its expansion. These are things to realize at a later period. I am still seeking realizations to this. The raw potential of creation is untapped by the spiritual world, thus far only reserved for greater beings. Even now the pathways we possess here to achieve such greatness so far only tell us to be humble and not make grand displays of such gifts. They warn that we should live in silence because the world isn't ready for such feats. However, I must play devil advocate here. What is all these reasons we possess is merely a way for us to hamper down on our true potential so that we never are able to give another being a glimpse of what can truly be. There are greater beings that choose to keep themselves secret to us, but they have their reasons. But then there are those who exist throughout even this world that never come forward. Within a Buddhist prayer, the Sangha, body or community, calls forth to honor Buddhas, all other beings that have the potential to become Buddhas, and the Buddhas that have hidden themselves to please come forth and grant us their wisdom. My point here is that within the spiritual collective we are very aware of one another and are unified in our goals. We may even communicate in ways that our minds may not yet fully understand, but we are all here, existing within the realms, planes, and dimensions. Realm of entropy. The realm of entropy is where we start here, but only when we associate ourselves with the outer universe to such a degree that our consciousness begins to fade will corruption begin. The beings within the physical universe are cycled out fast and are ushered forwards to be reborn in the lower realms. The faster their life and death cycles are, more consciousness can be absorbed. These lower realm dwellers lead such corrupted lives that they tend to die sooner and even infect others along the way. Aware beings who have gained stronger insights into functioning and living are processed slower to collect from them their current conscious understanding to be able to add it to the outer universe. Greater beings and above that should fall, risks the possibility of becoming embraced by entropy. These minions could greatly enhance the outer universe's expansion in a multitude of ways, and they bring with them a wealth of current wisdom that awakens the outer universe to put new techniques to use. The greater corruptions are those that infect large nations or massive numbers of souls. It would be similar to putting the lights out in a portion of the collective universe, with an infection of suffering to all adjoining life. A word to all of those who believe they follow and even worship dark forces, chances are entropy has not even taken notice of you. The outer universe feeds off consciousness, you are most likely among the ones that are cycled through the lower realm with little to offer it. Even if you suddenly gained ancient dark wisdom, entropy created it and it wouldn't take interest. If you are used to influence a group or to cause some event, entropy in the end will continue to cycle you quickly through the lower realms. There is only loss, upon this path. The legions of these dark realms are very old and few in numbers, it is maintained by feeding off one another. There are ancient ones that never show themselves because even they exist knowing they could be consumed. You could not fathom how long I contemplated to even speak of these secrets. I thought about the summoners and casters that believe the lies that are told to them, how they always feel they have control. But the origins were granted to the great summoners of the Atlantean age. After the fall of Atlantis, these dark ones manipulated much of the knowledge that was passed down. They are here, and no longer need to be summoned, except for the possibility of incarnating, which would manifest them into the physical realm. A gift, only souls in the collective universe can give. The outer universe's sub-realms are titled dimensions because they exist within the outline of planes. It will take an aware being to view this chapter, for some may not wish to see their own faults. However, should you see yourself in a trait, then you're a healthy conscious spirit. Only those who refuse to see themselves or make excuses for their actions are considered unconscious. Some realms still offer an opportunity of freedom from them, in those I have given contemplation to assist. There are gifts that are granted to us as we gain insight in the collective universe. Here in the outer universe, they are called transformations, for once we are in the grasp of these realms, we have little to do other than follow unconsciously. Higher dimensions of dark and destruction. The dimensions of dark and destruction is formed from the knowledge of once collected greater beings. These dimensions are full of the scattered loss and echoes from a forgotten past. Dark ones are beings that at one point were our possible leaders, even spiritual leaders. Though I am beginning to realize that it is more structured than I originally comprehended, which causes me to want to go deeper at a later point. Ancient ones slumber in massive far-off places capable of feeding off entire galaxies, rarely able to move unless to seek out the next source of light. While others are twisted into spider-like webbing none of us can imagine, believing themselves a universe, while those who inhabit these areas deplete slowly of life force. I have no information on how an ancient one comes into being, only the corruptions they are responsible for. The dark ones I can consider having such great consciousness and then to fall prey to corruption, believing yourself greater than all beings and demanding worlds to submit to you. Your conscious gifts from creation will cease and you will lose your very soul that had evolved through an unaccountable amount of time. This is an obvious rare scenario, but I view them to dissect how the outer universe wheedles into our consciousness. Especially those among the best of us. These ancient ones whisper on chords of echoes far deeper than we can know at this time. There are limits to their reach, for an echo can travel only so far. But these echoes can last for an insurmountable amount of time. The initial events that form such an entity can last until it no longer has a source of consciousness to feed off. I do know that an ancient one can die off. I do know that it will go into a slumbering state. Perhaps part of a design other than ours. We are not as a collective in a position to view these movements to fully understand them. Higher beings within the collective universe have created outposts which few of us get to see. They are stories of fantasy to our perspectives at this time. One such place is called Shambhala. The outpost that has been destroyed by dark forces have been El Dorado, in South America, Aslan, taken over in Mexico when the death religions formed, Wise, somewhere between Britain and France, created by the beings from water's evolution, but a topic for another time. Two outposts that have been created purely by greater elementals is Avalon, home of the elementals, and Pleroma, place where the holy beings watch over us. Note that heaven is not among these places. Part of our individual journey is to accept the reasoning behind this fact. Lastly, energies are in formation to establish an outpost here in the Americas once enough awakened beings manifest. Ancient Ones and Dark Ones are defined by the expansions they have amassed. Ancient Ones can devour such massive areas that they become the sole inheritor of the area, becoming so blocked off from light that they are enclosed within a dimension of their own making, yet will continue to be sustained by the life force that surrounds them on trace-like levels. They rarely inhabit more than a single universe. We are unfortunate to have two in our known universe. Ancient Ones are only attracted to obvious great gatherings of consciousness, but they will stay away from one another unless they have depleted the universe they inhabit. I realize what I speak of is truly beyond our conscious intellect, and one day these writings will be understood more comprehensively. Media has influentially made these truths known through theater and the occasional newscasting, but they have also made us immune and desensitized to the reality. It has only become more aggressive as technology grows, and we enjoy it as illusions. Lower dimensions of fears and internalizations. These dimensions are where any of the other dark beings exist in. They actively prey on the corruption and false views we form of one another and the world around us. They tend to gather in numbers depending on how much we are infected. They vary in size but not necessarily in strength, though their leadership will be seen through those following behind one. This is where our concepts of hell come from. We may have actually been stuck here in the past life. Many of us are stuck spiritually within these dimensions though we possess physical forms. It's only when we entrap ourselves in the lies that we remain stuck after death. Unlike the collective physical planes where we will always possess physical forms, these lower dimensions pull us from the physical world to the abysmal dimensions as we become more corrupted. Within these dimensions we can be subjected to a reality that truly is of our internal making, moved away from the truth and consciousness. These corrupted agents will direct us in an ever-echoing suffering that will actualize our beliefs by tapping into our powers of creation and manifesting these lies into the physical world around us. It is said, be careful what you wish for, and should you be corrupted, this would be true. You will find nothing but confusion within these dimensions, billions of corrupted unconscious souls internalizing their fears into creation, at times even spilling out into the physical world. Literally whatever the mind can believe, remember that we create the forms of these dark elementals due to our concepts of them. Most alien abduction encounters are souls trapped here and having their fears come to life. You do not need to be asleep if you are stuck deeply in these dimensions. Any time of the day shadows can contort and play with the senses. I can say that some alien encounters are authentic, but without consciousness every event that we can conceive as otherworldly or metaphysical can just as easily be produced by dark beings for your mind only. Easily done by recreational drugs, difference being that collective beings will have controlled events, outer beings horrific ones. We have become too accustomed to our unrealized human condition. We now only believe what we see, when in fact what we see is obscured. Many awakened souls and even alien races understand us far too well. They know that great displays of anything outside of our understanding would cause us great harm mentally, and so they will not, even when asked. When we do see a true event, it is fabricated, dissected, and recreated on media. I'm reminded of the crop circles. The dark plane. I need to define the entities that exist within the dark plane. Now I will take us into the places we refuse to view, where truth is twisted into beliefs that hinder our very ability to prosper. The outer universe, full of unconsciousness and lack of growth, incapable of connecting to the richness of life and the everlasting supply of consciousness, it reflects a place that feeds upon itself as it mimics what it conceives to be right. Light workers and healers work tirelessly to bring consciousness into these realms and the beings that reside here. A light worker is able to bring conscious energy back into a damaged space, where a light healer is able to bring consciousness back to a lost soul. But in the end, it takes the unconscious being to change its place within the realms, for they are responsible for their own life path. For these damaged souls, I will lay their unconsciousness before us so that we are never again deceived. Unconsciousness begins to grow the same as consciousness, when we move our observations into areas that we perceive to be the workings of the grand design but are mistaken. We allow ourselves to be influenced by the groups we are attached to without taking an aware viewpoint for ourselves, and over time this becomes the norm. We then tend to follow what the new ways of existing are in our communities, not because we know it to be right, but because that's what everyone is doing. We become afraid to move outside of these viewpoints. Over time, continuing this way into darkness as it begins to eat at our consciousness. This begins to conflict with our original concepts of oneness, and we begin to attempt to form our own understandings from what we once knew was right. Yet without connections with the source, we aren't presented with current understandings from within the collective consciousness and must piece together what we believe to be right. We continue this way until we seek to feed off anyone or anything we believe will make us feel this connection again, or fill the gap that is left in our souls. In the worst extremes, we end up taking on the conception that our survival is paramount to any others in our existence, for everything is just for us to experience. Every hardship is ours alone, and those who hurt us must be dealt with. In the lowest of the outer universe, we find ourselves so completely disconnected that there is nowhere for us to grow. You will enter into the outer universe via the dimension of infections. Here you will continue to cycle through all of entropy's subdimensions of infections, dysfunctions, and abnormalities continuously throughout lifetimes. The plane of entropy, fears, and internalizations are primarily influential within the physical universe, because here the outer universe can be most active, and will be the most effective to produce corruption in Earth's evolution. Key words must be understood now. In the collective souls we reincarnate, this very meaning is the act of reprocessing new consciousness and new information in various ways within the evolving world. Souls within the outer universe incarnate, they embody what they currently know and aren't able to reinvent themselves for our conscious evolution. Planes are where collective consciousness resides and all places where creation and light can manifest. If this term is used, it is because light still touches these areas even if it is considered a corrupted plane. We move through these areas with astral bodies free of all lower forms. Realms are created spaces. This can be in exchange for the word kingdoms, but they are both created spaces within the collective, and corrupted spaces within the outer universe. Both exist in places only our etheric bodies can move through and are enhanced or infected by. Last are dimensions. These are pockets of corrupted areas which reside inside of both the planes and realms. It is attached to the corrupted minds, collectively giving it the appearance of a wildly strung webbing. Until it grows into large amounts and appears to be a solid mass, but continuously active and feeding off those encased in it. It grows only as the population grows, and if they become entangled within each of these places when corruption has peaked, it will seep out and be reflective in these environments. For most collective beings it will only be seen as heavy pollutions, unhealthy resources, and living conditions that range from horrendous to unsustainable. For conscious beings we will see this directly on any other plane or realm as I have explained it. For the empathetic souls they will sense it and even become physically ill to it. Any soul sensitive will attempt to avoid these areas through instinct. I will continue now. Eventually and inevitably, as you continue to be processed within entropy you will form solidifying concepts of the world you exist in. These are not cleansed throughout lifetimes, for again, you are not given new consciousness upon rebirth, hence unconsciousness only becomes stronger. Your creative powers begin to build a world where your core viewpoints are what you consider to be true, and even this will be pieced together from your lifetimes of experience. Even century-old beliefs will be part of your core viewpoints coming into this world. The more you stay within this cycling existence, you no longer gain new information from the collective universe. What you once possessed will slowly be replaced with dark habitual natures. Souls trapped within these incarnations are known as infective beings. Only new beings entering this first dimension are the most harmless among the outer universal beings. This can perhaps be 1 to 10 recycling depending on what events occur in their lifetime. These new infective beings still possess the ability of their own realizations to be reborn back into the collective universe. They are in most cases capable of still having a sense of right beliefs and will follow the rules out of necessity. They harbor a negative outlook that causes them to dislike positive beings around them but will keep these thoughts to themselves initially. They truly see positive livelihood as not realistic, and if feeling cornered with this will invoke many deterrents in making the positivism cease. This could be from causing infectious concepts to grow around them, or if they are in a leadership role forcing others to adhere to their beliefs. This would be the largest portions of the infected souls we encounter. I choose not to give a statistic, for all we need is to be aware to know these beings. Throughout entropy cycling we take on stronger amounts of infection as we begin to deplete what is left of our life's force. Some beings can move here and then back to the collective universe many times due to their karmic debts, but rarely move deeper into the outer universe, because off and on they were able to reincarnate and start fresh as a soul. I will speak more on this later. Whereas the dimension of infections secures our lost perceptions of truth, the dimension of dysfunctions makes us inept to function properly in a universe full of creation and light. Here we take on finding new ways of sustaining ourselves by stimulating suffering in others to gain energy. Depending upon the infected mind, this could be very intelligently creative. Spiritual dependency will be reflected in our very natures, which causes souls to fall into this grasp in various ways, especially kind souls which have developed empathy for suffering. This will be a direct link to causing the outer universe to spread. The infected soul's dependency gives much suffering on an aware being when they feel compelling needs to satisfy these beings. Guilt and allegiance are strictly enforced and can take on light forms of aggression to get back to what the infective being believes is normal. These infective beings can somewhat function in society, and some have learned to play a role while outside performing tasks, but will rarely be given a leadership role due to their dislike for others cooperatively functioning. They many times take on activities that they believe helps them to forget about their struggles in the world, like drug use, which will lead to more dysfunctional viewpoints. Modern-day psychic vampirism completely encompasses this viewpoint. They are not aware to know that they were incarnated in this dimension. They are aware that they lack life's energy. They have advanced enough to go out and hunt for it in direct means, instead of just manipulating others. But here the infective being develops the viewpoint of self-survival. Through internal needs they will feed off anyone, even themselves, if they find another with more energy than them. The last type of infective being hails from the dimension of abnormalities. These infective beings will actively seek a life that is perceived as an authoritarian role solely for dominating purposes. When a collective being wishes to be a leader, they do so with the core belief that they can lead in a positive way and help make a difference in society. When an infective being does this, their core viewpoint is pure dominance. For this is the way in which they perceive the world to be in its raw nature, and their direct means to be able to feed off suffering. They may go through many obstacles to become someone who looks right for the job until they finally achieve this. This can be the military, specifically foot soldier branches, any form of law enforcement branches, or any career where hands-on suffering can be inflicted upon others, even if the end result is a feeling of accomplishment. These inflictive beings are quick to react to situations with all levels of hostility, but still possess some understanding of not to use it in an immoral way in the public eye. The very last note to realize here is that these infected beings can all be cleansed of their false views. There are many reasons why we legitimately incarcerate and subjugate infective beings to our morals and laws. Those who have murdered may be the exception, for they are soon to be processed into lower places in the outer universe. Those who have killed have done so under the guise of law and can continue to do so until we restructure our societies. Those who have created anguish and suffering on others are unconscious to the true reasons why, and what truly they need from it to survive. Incarceration will only be a temporary fix for society, as long as they don't develop more corruption while in containment. Incarceration with conscious awakening other than psychological profiling would be better for these infective beings. When cycling through entropy for an unaccountable number of times, our lifetimes and ingenuity will be what stirs the outer universe to take notice. Should we live a life that seeks out and feeds continuously on aware souls, then we give new understandings to the outer universe as we develop further means to effectively survive. This does not happen to many, only those capable of creating a persona to others that looks above normal and can attract others' attention. These infective beings move into the dimension of fears as a chaotic being. These chaotic beings have very distinct personae, which I will clarify later on. Closer experience with these chaotic beings will note something is lacking in their natures to be truly concerned for others. They perform acts of kindness as a direct means to gain praise and will become negative if not receiving it. They take on leadership as a disguise to misdirect others and gain power. The larger the groups they lead, the less likely the masses will see these defects. We saw a type of these chaotic being in Jim Jones, David Koresh, and Charles Manson, but rarely see the others only because they are much harder to detect. All praised and loved, but truly deceptive and corruptive to their followers. These chaotic beings can be cycled anywhere within the plane of entropy, and the plane of fears, where they can now be incarnated within the subdimensions of randomities, fixations, and death. Chaotic beings will incarnate as a being with a single understanding, for they rarely are capable of finding new streams of consciousness to feed off. Even if you were able to present a new way of thinking, they are too far entrenched to grasp it. If they were a spiritual leader, then they will become one again and again. They will cement themselves in what they last experienced and become more knowledgeable in just this way of thought every lifetime. Growing, amassing, and corrupting over and again until the collective beings rise in consciousness and outgrow them. On very few occasions they can attempt to reinvent themselves, but will find it very hard to absorb any new way of thinking, so we will get a strikingly old belief structure that doesn't really blend well with the new. This does not apply to the chaotic beings from fixations. Their viewpoints are ingrained to learn from what the outer universe has learned so far. Within the realms of internalizations, we become lost most times ethereally due to intense pain and suffering, which can be a single lifetime or can be developed over lifetimes. The abysmal realms takes a very strong consciousness to perceive, much less comprehend. It is a complete fragmentation of unconscious beings within a soupy solid mix, all infecting one another. Nightmarish concepts where the world has been contorted by beings incapable of viewing anything beyond their constructed unreality. We enter here through the cycling of entropy, and generally have the events of indescribable atrocious acts that we were involved in, even if not by choice. One by one, as the screams and sufferings occur, a unique thing happens. We become entangled and meshed together in our pain, compounded as the suffering adds to itself for large amounts of space. The unconscious beings that are responsible have such hate, that their wishes burn their last resources of creative powers into the ones they inflict, while the beings suffering add to the monstrous acts with their powers drawn out through pain. The two will become so completely tethered to one another, that even after those inflicting the pain will be pulled back here after death and become cemented. It's hard to fathom the array of intensity. This plane was created far back beyond even Earth's evolution and has grown because we have fed it beyond our knowledge. Unconscious beings generally don't incarnate anymore, just stay within their portions and persist, stuck and seething with different forms of negativity for the living over time. For a greater being to even attempt to cleanse these areas, they need to be able to unravel the direct unconscious beings and not the conglomerated area of infection, even be willing to confront that it could have begun millions of years ago. Beings here are usually titled depending on their subdimension they inhabit: mystery, specters, and ghosts. This is not the end all to our journeys, just a setback of an immense amount of time for some. Most that are killed quickly do not possess suffering or forming animosity and hate. It may also be a karmic debt simply ripening. Either of these scenarios will just place the soul back within the collective to be reincarnated. I will explain in more detail further. If our cycling within entropy should take on above exceptional advancement for the outer universe. Perhaps, an infective being that is essentially a key reason for great human death for tens of hundreds of years to come. These infective beings have been possessed enough to have an intention and acknowledgement of what they are and will do. They perform these actions without the fleck of guilt. It isn't for their advancement in any way, just to destroy many lives. The death cults of Mexico comes to mind as an example. I dare not openly point to anyone in today's world. They take an active pleasure in this, and even honor a dark one by cycling so many lifetimes. They may even have to perform great destructive acts many lifetimes in service of the dark one. Then they might be incarnated within the plane of dark. Dark ones have little need for personal servants, for they realize by assisting another dark one to form would be their competition. For them, all that are corrupted within their area are already feeding them and sustaining them. They generally move all corrupted as pawns throughout their space without the slightest knowledge of them doing it. On many occasions they puppet chaotic ones when beings believe they uncovered them. Rarely having to do much because the outer universe is an active thing all to itself in them, its tenders. They do possess the highest capable intelligence among all the outer universe beings stationed within the physical world. They are birthed through dark in 3 different paths among the subdimensions: stasis, defabrications, and gorging, each taking on different but specific personalities. These are the real counterparts to the angelic beings from the holy kingdoms. Do not believe that since we only have 5 of them here that it's not something to worry about. These dark ones, much like archangels, are godlike compared to our understandings. To even peek their heads out of their secret areas of protection would make them face instant confrontation from all that have been waiting. Since the collective universe hasn't been able to fully cleanse their corrupted barriers that tends to continue to grow, the fight feels tedious. But we will see what the future holds. Within the realms of destruction, only ancient ones are revealed. Very specific events produce such an entity. They will become one of 3 types to our knowledge within the known universe's dark matter, compactions, and absorptions. The evolved planes, realms, and dimensions will in most cases be obliterated. I promise to explain this fully at this time, I just don't wish to present this immediately. We should first fully realize the stages that would lead to this unimaginable event, for it has happened before. Realm of Entropy. The realm of entropy is where we start here. This usually begins when we allow concepts of destructive tendencies to seep into our consciousness. We are generally collective beings within the plane of possibilities and had very little amounts of seeing the blessings we have had thus far. We all have ongoing thoughts, but generally we filter out those that we know would harm, for it's not within our natures. Parents may teach us what they feel are ways to survive, and we will not be at fault for participating in some of these activities, for instance hunting. The conscious universe understands that it must provide sustenance. Should we continue to learn how to hunt and excel them, we are quite normal. Should we gain a desire to hunt without the need for sustenance, we will be moving into cautious terrain, but still considered hunting seasons open specifically to downsize population growth of animals. With a healthy respect for nature when you hunt is not something to become worried about. We fall prey into the outer universe through our stress and anxiety, which is a common theme throughout the modern world at this time and growing with increasing rate yearly. We are incarnated into cultures that give to us a world of continued concern for our livelihoods, our loved ones, and friends. We take on the challenge in our adolescence and do so with an ingrained sense of one wanting to master these morals within our societies. Rarely given the support growing up to learning techniques that will calm anxiety, we enter into a world where all in our social structures spend their time with us discussing only their anxiety and stress to add to ours. Deadlines, bills to pay, problems with relationships while we are bombarded by new forms as we worry. There are those who give the appearance that they have it together, and so are given more responsibility, more friends come to them with more anxiety and stress. At this point the mind cannot filter the need for accomplishment with the need for personal development. Now that I have given an overview of the outer universe, I will explain it in smaller steps. I will start from what is considered the lower caste, and then move us into the more entrenched entities which reside here. I will also offer the knowledge of how to move out of these areas should we come to some self-realizations. Learning is no longer a joy here in America, but an essential to beat the crowds and get through your studies to become accomplished. The schooling system, at very few times challenges us to critically think and would much prefer to give us an abundance of assignments that would streamline us for years within the system. We select our majors 90% of the time early on, and it is completely consistent with wages we would make in such a field of study. If we alter this course, then we suffer falling behind from our set destinations by having added courses or taking a new major close to what we've accomplished so far in our studies. Most of us exit this through debt that we will not be able to pay once we begin working for decades afterwards, when we are expected to build our own families, buy homes, and assist the families that supported us. In other countries we can be born into chaotic streets where death and hostility still exist. Where populations are controlled with a strong hand and our families are in constant anxiety of not developing emotionally, for this is considered weak and impart a direct and firm sense of false worth to one another. For this is how generations have survived, and now we must too. There are laws here which forbid freedom of expression, or acceptance of self-worth, for your life was one born of service to a leader or to a god, sometimes considered the same. To go against this there is death, and the most tragic displays that it is something we grow up never letting go of, and even continues throughout lifetimes. The world is now in a constant competition to develop faster, accomplish more, and produce more effective people. We learned this during this COVID pandemic, where we became more concerned with American productivity than we did for the lives of our people. America completely became ineffective in protecting its citizens at this time, through the jobs lost, family and friends lost, and the community breakdowns which caused anxiety and stress to increase insurmountably. But what is needed is to look at, was this the outer universe's goal from the beginning of this pandemic? Or the effect from those who are infected which lack the consciousness to make the decisions needed to overcome the threat? Or the individuals who through corrupted souls performed actions that led us here? Entropy takes hold of us when our thoughts reach a point of true defeat. Viewing the world has caused such anxiety and stress that it is obscuring our viewpoints. We develop a pessimistic view of being powerless to successfully change the areas in which we exist. Now through the internet this could be even the planet. This infection doesn't happen easily, for there are always aware beings attempting to give us a positive outlook and saying just what we need to hear to keep us going. But we must actively keep these positive souls in our lives. Most importantly, take on these positive beliefs. If every conversation consists of you laying down your negative experiences and the positive soul attempting to help, then eventually they will leave you to your troubles. Being willing to give and receive positivism the best you can, will show the other that you do not wish to stay in your pessimistic concepts and are willing to be free of them. Should you go the other route and amass a group of pessimistic friends, then you will get together continuously, complain about situations, and harbor their pessimism, strengthening your own. There is a practice for only those within the cycling of entropy. They can perform themselves if they are willing to get out of their growing suffering. Others have become too far gone to be helped by collective souls and would take a greater being to reach them. Greater beings possess the clairvoyance to pierce the truth back into these corrupted beings and unlock the places deep within their lifetimes where they fell into the infections. Greater beings can also block themselves from becoming possibly infected, which was seen many times when exorcisms went wrong. Greater beings are also gifted with a stronger connection to Source so that they will not be drained of life's force. All these skills will come forth again as we start to progress within our spiritual evolutions. For now, we are mature enough to consciously balance these blessings, and if we are aware of these things in us, we still have the choice to change. The hardest thing to accept if you reside here is that no one has made you the way you are. At some point within your existence you accepted the experiences, even if they were forced upon you. Most training structures, especially military-based, prefer to break down your concepts so that they can retrain you from a blank slate. Who are you? Truly. Practice. It isn't easy to see good in the world at times, so we create it. We become what we don't see around us, even if initially we lack the ability to see it as helpful. Our minds are becoming clouded, so we need to perform actions to cleanse these thoughts. You may be poor and have very little, but you give to someone in need. You assist another that has asked for help the best way you possibly can. Someone cuts you off in the car, you actively allow the next car to pass. When you become what you don't see, you will begin to see it. We may even be grouchy about performing these acts of kindness because we are too stuck in our heads, but do it anyway. The activity will eventually cleanse the mind. Other infective beings will attempt to give harsh opinions if we perform kind acts, so we do not discuss it. This is something that is between us and us alone. Blessings will come your way, so keep at it. Directly find positive stories on the internet, stories of possibilities made real. Join groups that volunteer and assist others. The most important thing is that you find a blessing every day before you sleep. It could be simply that your health is good, or you raised good children. There is always something to be thankful for, just ask your positive friend. These practices can only be performed by those who haven't allowed negativity to influence them so much that they view these kind acts as foolhardy. But even then, I would challenge you to attempt them. Positive beings can pull you into them in an attempt to release you from your pessimism. Go and do them. No matter how set you are about your beliefs, the smallest act of kindness can have life-shaking transformations to your beautiful soul. Realm of Fears. Begins with Dimension of Randomities. These are the only chaotic beings I can channel, the others I care not to direct my consciousness into. Here we survive for ourselves but have the persona of a wild and free spirit which is very attractive to others. We are over-enthused with our expressions which make all initially want to know us better. People will see some faults over time but will excuse it because of how we make them feel when they are with us. This is a game that most must follow, however, for as soon as we no longer get this praise of their energy, we quickly move about to another soul to infatuate. There is human nature that develops similar to these traits, but they receive this and popularize it from our influence. Same sexes see us and want to mimic us, because they see us as alphas. The difference between them is that when their doors close, they simply fall asleep. With us, when the door closes, we become agonized over everyone, and everything that took our spotlight throughout the day's activity. This annoyance is incredibly strong, and we easily make plans to get rid of people who challenge us from our inner circles. It is a private dialogue that we never let anyone see as we prepare to become more impressive for the next day. We keep building our identity, until we feel we know what is needed to make everyone love us, and then we become that almost overnight. At the root of this particular chaotic being is a needed survival to be believed. Deeply inside they know they are not any of these great appraisals, but they need to be. Should you follow them, they will always pull you into their world of over-the-top situations where they come out unscathed, while your life falls immensely apart. Then will their true natures be revealed, for if they can no longer use you, and you would all blame them even without vocalizing it, they will drop you without a second of concern for your hardships. As they progress and find a following, they tend to develop egregious acts with their followers for pure satisfaction under the lies of self-realized laws. Leaders of sects will do everything from child abuse to partnering up with wives while forbidding even the husbands to sleep with their own wives. Should their true natures start coming to light, they will without hesitation order all to protect them and easily die for them without an ounce of true concern. As with all chaotic beings, there is a core incarnation of hidden fear that they will destroy any and all who threaten to expose it. So, we must tread with care if they have any people that follow them, are loyal, or entranced by their disillusioned greatness. The deep-seated fear in these beings is that they are not real. They have fought so hard to create an identity that they are great and have been fed this to their ego for so long by those who idolize them. They alone secretly know the truth because entropy has ingrained this in their incarnation, and now uses this corrupt concept of not being real to infect others with a variety of suffering. For greater beings, cleansing these chaotic beings begins with understanding their hidden secret. They are not real is a direct twisted belief that they are not real in the physical sense. They are not real, because they are spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body. The outer universe contorts this concept to make their egoistic minds misunderstand the truth. The formation of this chaotic being begins in entropy. They will undoubtedly have had many incarnations of being made to feel completely worthless, being told this with overbearing families or even careers. These lives will always have subjugated them to harsh physical beatings where being called worthless is associated with it. As this becomes their core beliefs, they incarnate into the same lifetimes over and again. They ripen to be incarnated into the realm of fear the moment they wish to be somebody. Hence the outer universe grants their wish to try. Next chaotic being is from the dimension of fixations. This is a very intelligent chaotic being. They will excel at any and all new technologies at their disposal, many times inventing new ones that we advance with in strides. Intelligent, yet very disconnected and undeveloped emotionally and bear no understanding of the human plight. Whereas the dimension of randomities originated in Earth's evolution, this chaotic being originates from water's evolution, therefore an entity with a very different viewpoint. These chaotic beings will have just the bare reflection of human qualities, for it will be determined from their time here in Earth's evolution. They will keep us enthralled with understandings of inventive breakthroughs, but will do this through great suffering. Societies will formulate a false view that only through suffering can we advance our goals, then accept death as a way of life. Chaotic beings such as these incarnate at key points in our advancement. They are always incarnated in great conflicts when we have been weakened consciously as a collective. They can lead, but because of their disconnect to human understanding, they prefer to become a quiet voice that whispers to leaders of nations, generally from the most unconscious side of any conflict. Following the trail of these chaotic beings, we will see the conceptual destruction of human concern and spiritual development, to the advancements of industrialization and advanced warfare. Examples would be Surgeon General Shiro Ishii of Japan, Rosher, a Nazi scientist, and Jack Parsons, a rocket engineer, and follower of a Dark One. These chaotic beings are very cunning. Unlike the chaotic beings of randomities, these chaotic beings function in well-orchestrated groups. They always push forward an agenda of materialism and technology and are in complete conflict with the Luciferian agenda of spiritual and soul entrapment. They will generally attempt to thwart Lucifer's movements if they become aware of them. The Inquisition and witch trials were only these two forces at war. The most current would be the Luciferic influence on Hitler to become a messiah and lead Germany, while defiling the sacred Hindu symbol of the sun into a symbol of hate via the swastika. Hitler was completely outside of the outer universe's reach, being controlled by Luciferic entities. Should they have had their way, Hitler would have taken hold of continents and made them fully absorbed under Lucifer's control. Later in Hitler's reign, we notice failing health and insane-like personality conflicts. A direct realization that corruption took hold. We know well how this conflict ended, but never look at a crucial, disheartening result. We must understand that the Aryan race was the fifth root race in our evolution. The name Aryan now invokes a very dark meaning to the uninformed soul and has a string of corruption on it. The rise of anti-Semitism still to this day has not been cleansed from cultures throughout the world and continues to broaden its meaning. A sacred race demolished from spiritual evolution through our unconscious understandings and caught attempting to catch up, but still very deeply corrupted. This is the first and most important things we should place our consciousness as a collective. Only a healthy awakening of this race will cleanse the greater being that sacrificed themselves to us all. In today's world, these chaotic beings associate themselves with third world type countries. They prefer to be more intelligent than those they manipulate. They rarely live in these countries but prefer to associate from the comfort of elevated state and give the appearance of wealth and power. They spend most of their lifetimes here once they incarnate on Earth, learning, growing, and combining what they have amassed with one another to secure it throughout their lives. I will attempt to convey their incarnation, though it has many steps and can be restructured if needed by them. Their hidden secret, however, will always be there. It is to progress through destruction. The incarnations of these entities are cycled in a place we have not fully comprehended yet. I can tell you that it is a continued incarnation of mechanized structure and struggle to hammer conscious life out. It would be easy to see why this secret is ingrained to their incarnation here on Earth. These chaotic beings practice and deploy ancient occult traditions, while twisting the masses to fully disbelieve them. This incarnation, however, is initially from a currently living being on Earth. This order of chaotic beings seek out and find those they wish to assist them. The being will be an infected being and show qualities of promise for their inception. On this, the collective and Luciferic order attempt to thwart their advancement. Once prospected, this infected being is incarnated by the control of a Dark One, which always commands these different orders. This incarnation will be continuously connected to these orders throughout lifetimes, as the orders places them directly through trials. There can be many prospects doing this continuously, even incarnating into offspring by passing before the offspring is born. The process commences the moment they have fully ingested progress through destruction, with all humanity erased. Then through secret dark ceremonies the Dark One will bring forth this chaotic being and instill it into the initiate. All traces of soul diminished, this newly incarnated chaotic being will present itself to the earth with a completely new persona. Their lives could be one of unknown legacy and suddenly become an overabundance of knowledge. With viewpoints that will push us away from any belief in occultism or secret societies, but inventive growth through technology and materialism. On occasion, chaotic beings fail to keep their orders hidden and collective beings find a piece of this out. They are destroyed by the order, then the order will attempt to eradicate all traces of them and giving their praise to another in the order. This is becoming harder to do unless they are able to control the growing rates of communication now. Once incarnated here, they will continue to secure the assets and incarnate within the same genetic lines continuously as they grow. They initially manufactured inventions themselves but have now evolved to invest to infect populations through our greed and competitive natures. They fight in a world very few of us could possibly understand. The true powers in societies have always been collective conscious beings, organizations of chaotic beings, and luciferic beings. Each attempting to develop new ways to halt the other's progression, and all in every branch of our societies that you can imagine. This new playing field has brought forth dark forces that are incarnations of arrogance. They live and exist with conscious beings and make laws to protect themselves. Chaotic beings openly confront collective beings, knowing that if conflicts occur, the collective will most likely be looked at as the fault through those laws. For greater beings, we are for the most part awakened and aware of these forces. Many have bundled them as a single force, which may not be far from the truth. Direct insight only serves to know the forces you confront. We see now why the wisest of us leave away from society to build our strength, and then later return capable. The greatest realization we can have, is to know that we are created stronger in every way once fully awakened. This is our only true goal. We should not play their games and take them on actively, for it diminishes our truest purpose, to free one another and raise collective consciousness. We are not alone, legions of angelic beings stand ready, for this is what they have great experience with. They have always been our guardians, and we need to finally acknowledge this and give them full access to our developing kingdom. The corruption of disbelief has hindered them for too long. Look at the world and its suffering. As for us, we needn't take on any of these chaotic beings directly. Our consciousness unified will cleanse the entire earth if we but knew this. One fully awakened being can truly free millions of souls. This is what entities from the realm of fears are afraid of. The last chaotic being is incarnated into the dimension of death. I suspect it is an advanced form from the subdimension of abnormalities. These chaotic beings are rare and generally will await until the outer universe calls them forth to be incarnated. This will be similar to understanding true destructive chaos in its rawest nature. For all identifications, they are likened to dictators, the drug lords, and the tyrants, but will always have no trace of love within them. Death and suffering will surround these chaotic beings, generally by their directions and hands. They are brought up in the most extreme bloody societies, and then incarnated throughout history. When incarnating within the modern world, they still incarnate within harsh societies, but usually aren't able to prosper to their full extent when they realize many organizations will deter and capture them. Their rise to power is always through tragic murderous acts, and will attempt this within a militant group that forms under the guise of victimization. They can easily sway suffering of the masses into a need to destroy the oppressors. Many times, the oppressors are seeking an overall positive growth for their societies. All dictators create false narratives that their followers believe and continuously affect new generations. They ultimately kill all who they feel will oppose them without the slightest concern of emotion. They do not have friends, all in their viewpoint is an enemy. If they survive to rise in great power, they do so through godlike idolization of their followers. They maintain a strict rule of complete adherence to them so that the outside does not influence their control. They operate through any known tactic of control and have had many incarnations to develop these tactics. Many may misperceive this chaotic being as any who show these qualities, but many infected beings can develop and bring immense hardships to the world. These chaotic beings will be known by their cold dark stare that will only be received by an aware being as emotionless. Being incarnated into an already corrupted area, they are able to continuously release their rampage upon others. The next scenario is different. This will hit close to home when considering the massive shootings that have been occurring in America. We all are asking why, and are consciously detoured to accept distractions. But I will let you decide this. The argument will of course be, why then are youth becoming affected, but are we allowed to truly look into their lives? Because of the unique way these beings incarnate, they sometimes will incarnate in a small area within a society, where the surrounding areas are growing in prosperity and attempting to progress consciously. This chaotic being will attempt to fit in for a time with full intelligence that they don't belong. They will continue to relive their past incarnations where they held power and control over others. This will give to them a growing conflicted superiority complex. They will become plagued by the suffering they've inflicted and twisted at attempting to live in a prosperous environment. They will live and work but will harbor the deepest thoughts of death and destruction. Within all cases, this chaotic being will snap and go on a murdering spree that will shake the very foundation of the inhabitants within these areas for generations by infecting the societies with deep-seated fear. These chaotic beings are 6 in number at last count, and there are usually 3 in circulation at a time in Earth's evolution. When not incarnated, they go into a deep slumber within this dimension, which sometimes can last hundreds of years as Earth transforms with its people. They no longer possess a will of their own, and the outer universe is in complete control of their incarnations. I do believe each has a hidden secret, but it would be useless to try to understand these entities. What is known is that they incarnate in two ways. 1. When a society has corrupted to the point where all initial inhabitants are infective beings from entropy, the outer universe will incarnate one to become a leader to rise up through the infection. 2. When all collective inhabitants are in the plane of possibilities. This last event rarely happens, for we are all on multiple areas on all occasions. It can only occur when societies are in internal transformations and exist without the needs of their neighboring societies. This can never occur in an area where, even though they are self-sustaining, there is at least one awakened being. Shamans are mandatory for tribes, as we should follow their wisdom. These chaotic beings also retain a shadowed awareness of their past lives. It doesn't come into full fruition until they spill blood. Then they will, through blood, begin to piece together all that they are capable of. Those who raise in power and secure their dominance are completely knowing to what they are, and who they have been in the past. Hence, should they become a dictator, they will not want to lose power, and most of all do not want to go back to their slumbering state. The most unique thing about these chaotic beings is the ability for the outer universe to pull them back, leaving the body less than functionable. All who knew these individuals will be left alone, assume that the person snapped, and are no longer a person to which they once remembered. I in no way assume that this accounts for each situation. There are many infective beings that are capable many things. Only the greater among us will be able to see situations and know the truth in each event. For greater beings, within the planes of possibilities, we just need to be aware of the conditions of our surrounding terrain. Strengthening the collective consciousness is essentially strengthening the world we live in. Actively placing our consciousness within our cities and states can have incredible impacts on the souls that live there. Develop a conscious meditation routine from any normal meditations. This way we will stop this entrance point for this chaotic being. If we all should grow in consciousness, then we could force them to slumber forever. The same can be true for the beings within entropy. We must be willing to catch it before it occurs. Confront the disparaging places and people with the hope that will unlock them from their suffering. When we come to a collective senses that we are responsible for all that occurs on this planet, we then realize that we are all responsible for each other on this planet as well. Realm of internalization. Due to events within the toils of entropy, we have on many occasions lost our lives, some through severe dramatic situations, others through quite accidental means. Death from any event where the consciousness is within the collective, that soul will generally be reincarnated here again after a time. You may not be ready for this realization, but a healthy non-corrupted soul does not leave Earth's evolution. They do not travel about in limbo and need to go into the light. These recorded NDEs are accounting for what they have been influenced to believe. It is amazing how, when we lose the connection to a physical body, how capable we are to gain our powers of creation back. How quickly the universe becomes what we wish it to. And it will become what we wish it to, even if we feel we have no power over it. We can be so enthralled with these NDEs or actual deaths that we float about in a creation of our own design if we are willing to let go. Fantasy become manifested and we play in a world of heaven and delights. This is more of a mayday for the guardians. They will visit you quite often to help you to realize your misperceived truth, which could take many generations on Earth. When you do become conscious again, you will be ready to reincarnate. If not, we stay and will go through a curious period of attempting to contact our loved ones. They in turn may dramatize their feelings based on their beliefs. Life appears very solid for us, only we are moving about as an etheric body, our physical form lost, our astral form not realized. This is our plight when we have not awakened to forms yet. The conscious universe cannot reconnect to us until we accept this, for our minds will still be active, speculating solely on what went wrong from all that we thought would occur after death. You can stay here for generations and never see another like you. You eventually realize that this current existence you're in is only of your own making. You are in essence standing still as time moves onward, and you still very consciously view it move throughout all that you grasp it as real. The moment you accept that you are consciousness without form, a predetermined guardian will be able to enter your self-created universe and guide you forward. They will assist you in overlooking your last life and guide your plan when you are ready to reincarnate. This is how it is done, every time when you are a collective soul without awakening. It is peacefully yours alone, full of recollection and contemplation. Loved ones with clairvoyance will connect easily with you when they dream while you are in this dimension. In the beginning stages, while you are here in confusion, these loved ones will feel your suffering. Later, as you become at peace, they will conceive this as well and even have wonderful experiences when they visit as long as you are here. Of course, this is in the event that you are a collective being. I just wanted to give this insight. On the event that you are an infective being and die, things will be quite different. Here in the dimensions of mystery, specters, and ghost, our struggles persist beyond the grave. I will also like it to be known that if you are an infective being from entropy and have a natural death, You generally are quickly incarnated, perhaps even instantly, within the area you currently live. The outer universe intelligently had foreseen your death, and should all go as planned, will not waste any time keeping your infected energies back within the area of corruption. For all unforeseen events, the infected being will move into the dimension of mystery. Think of this dimension as a place where we are placed aside until dealt with. To keep us out of gaining any consciousness, this dimension keeps us in a limbo of lost wandering. Incapable of seeing past our situation, this dimension is filled with the negative emotions of all wandering here, collectively creating a world of added suffering. You roam about here, hearing and sometimes feeling all of the sufferings of the corrupted beings in this area simultaneously. You are after all connected to them in one giant composition of despair. Here you truly feel at one with them. No one enjoys this, but it's something that can't be ran away from. No rest, it is just constantly there. You can come across all others there as well, familiar or not. They will be going through their own internal noise and sufferings. Interactions can be randomly negative and even hostile. You will probably be here less than a year, at most a few. The difference from slipping into this dimension is you could incarnate wherever the outer universe needs bodies across the earth. There is a connection through this dimension that moves out of Earth's evolution and appears to tap into regions of the unknown universe. Most greater beings know of it, but none care to travel into it. We simply know it as the abysmal dimension. I will leave this for collective contemplations. Conscious beings can view this dimension quite easy and do so sometimes without choice throughout the day. We can amass a following of these entities because our souls shine brightly here, and being within our auras allows the suffering to cease. Initially, conscious beings develop protections because we view this as an attack or worrisome. Truth being that freeing this type of corrupted soul takes little effort because the outer universe does not have its attention on it here. We softly push our consciousness into the spirit and show them what goodness we see in the world as truth and possibilities. These spirits already desire to be free from their sufferings. We join this with our desire to free them, and in most cases, they will disperse back into the collective to process through the stages of reincarnation. Next, we have the dimension of specters, which is self-inflicted by us. Many times, we internally struggle between what we see and what we feel. We are very strong naturally, and it's not always so easy to contain such a being to the corruption. Our internal conflict can manifest in many of the physical and mental conditions we have today. There are many hardships that we have suffered at the hands of outer beings. I am not saying that every account of suffering we have suffered isn't wrong, for it is. But we must at some point, to properly mature as conscious souls, accept the occurrences and end the direct power it holds us in. As awareness arises in each soul, we become conscious of events that have held control over our actions in life. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, or situations of great suffering has always been the direct links to how we act as we form our opinions of the world. In addition to the environments that we grow up in, this has 100% impact on the decisions we make, the careers we choose, or the relationships we have. We work so hard to find a psychological reason to our conditions, many confirmed by others around us, adding strength to these identities. When we accept these false viewpoints, and thus give up our power of control, then we arrive in a world of medications and subjugation that few can recover from easily. Just viewing what we call psycho wards and those contained there as being processed to fit back into society gives most of us chills. A place of corruption that allows us to suffer deeper, identify as mentally incapable, to one day possibly go back into society, while paying the bill for those in charge of us and sustaining their prosperity in life. We must see that many institutions, should there not be any souls to prosper off of, would not exist today. That infected beings need to feed off of souls to survive. They do this only through suffering. I'm not attempting to place blame, but asking us to confront truth. For some, these things will be extremely difficult, for we have developed so many reasons for situations and identities that we have become a fault-finding society. Every defective birth has a reason and a cause. It may not be directly linked to the parents, but it can. Defective births can be linked to genetic lines, they can be linked to corrupted sustainable environments, and they can be linked to unhealthy lifestyles. Institutions do not want to say this to us. They are profiting and feeding off the suffering. Why would they? These births can also very easily be linked to our corrupted thoughts of both parents through conception. Are we as societies really ready to look at this and take full responsibility? Or are we going to pick it apart as not having the authority or education to say these things? Maturity means responsibility, not blaming others. The souls born into these physical forms are still blessed souls just like we all are, and should never be seen as anything different than that. Both conditions of being born physically and mentally disabled places on us a seed of not being fully adequate, strengthened by others' concepts of us. The conscious among us created the ADA for just these reasons. so that those born with any form of disability can be granted good and prosperous life without added suffering from others' negative viewpoints. I have known many, in fact within my current family, beautiful souls very capable of more love than many in the world. In addition, I have known many in these fields who are conscious. They begin their study with the hopes of freeing others, but become entrenched in the guidelines that must be followed. Eventually either leaving, or succumbing to strict guidelines that threaten to destroy their world if they do not do what is against their natures, to simply help. The very deeply stuck beings cannot be structured and used for the outer universe, stuck because they fully believe their conditions so completely, made stronger by those infected beings that need for them to continue to believe, that when they pass, they go to this dimension. The dimension of specters will attempt to process these infected beings back into a means where it can utilize them again. These entities are for the most part harmless but will be stuck in an area where they actualized, accepted, and thus identified with the lie that they are not sufficient to be normal. Once leaving their physical forms, they move into bluish hazy simulations of the environments they once lived in. They can wander about for extended amounts of time, being free of the physical world and their so-called conditions. They will begin to free up some of the burdens they possessed. If they died and are stuck in an institution where these practices persist, then they will most likely stay here influenced by these same conditions until over time the institution becomes something else or is demolished. If this is a home, where they suffered at the hands of a care provider, then this will be their place where they are stuck. They can have an infective impact upon the environments they are stuck in for a very long time. The most recent the event, the stronger the impact. Though not physically harmful, they can give to the sensitive and empathetic souls negative feelings and dreams of the hardships they suffered in life, even pulling us into viewing ourselves with these disabilities. Children are especially vulnerable and can in many cases perpetuate the same specter's cycle when the unconscious parents seek medical attention for their children. They will obviously be diagnosed with similar beginning stages of these disabilities through the child's communication of how they are feeling. Then the child will begin to develop more symptoms as the specter persists in the area, added to the parents' and medical physicians' continued imprinting through fears. I have known this to even develop as a physical condition where these stages would cause accidents to occur that will permanently disable the person to the exact areas that the specters possessed in life. Early on, people have created ceremonies to cleanse new homes and areas from these specters. Many of us use these still today, from having a priest bless the area, to burning sage. Empaths and clairvoyants are great in these areas, as long as they develop the consciousness needed to cleanse it properly. It does little good to make us aware and not be able to heal it. Just having the knowledge with no action can make us more aware of the specter, or worse, the specter aware of us. Any specter can be set free of an area with an equal amount of intent from the one performing the cleansing. This doesn't free the entity, just pushes it into the dimension of mystery to be incarnated again. Proper cleansing takes a conscious being. You must be able to see what has corrupted the specter and release them from this suffering by bringing consciousness and truth to them. A true cleansing will leave no residual and will free the being to go back into the collective consciousness. They will go through the stages of a death a collective being will go through, and then reincarnate. Realm of Dark. I will attempt to keep this short and to the point. My goal is to spiritually awaken the collective, but since this is new information, it does take more communication on my part. I did not go into detail on current avatars of the archangels, and will not imbalance us by doing so with their equivalents, the Dark Ones. I do believe once we are ready as an earthen society, the Dark Ones will be forced to show themselves or leave back to the safety of their realm. The Realm of Dark is where you will find the dimensions of gorging, defabrications, and stasis. The first two are always active, while the last is a place for transformation. Dark Ones are the core implements of the outer universe's wishes. They are imparted with a direct understanding and are considered princes of corruption. Long ago they came into Earth's evolution by our calling them here. I will repeat this, we were responsible for their presence. In the beginning we were but spirits which enjoyed the forces of the prime elementals. There was no need for good or bad, light and dark. We had no desires or needs, for everything manifested and was abundant. The hierarchies only observed from afar and marveled at our qualities. When what we now see as the war in heaven take place, it was in reality the holy kingdoms at war with themselves, of course starting over us. Every text speaks of Lucifer's anger, and that he was spiteful to show reverence to conscious beings born below his status in the known universe. But why would he not if he was, as the texts say, closest to what we believe to be God? I have discussed how greater beings reincarnate. Greater beings also reincarnate from other planes into planes and keep their consciousness. Lucifer hailed from a plane above holy and dark, reincarnated to lead the beings of holy on Venus. So yes, he was closer to the omni-consciousness, but was he in a direct communication is what we need to realize. A direct communication would never go against such a will. Yes, Lucifer was the leader of the holy hierarchy that was created for Earth at the time, and even though he did lead them to great heights, he did so by being a consciousness far superior to theirs at the time. It must have been extremely hard for them to go against what they looked at as a godlike figure for them, but this internal war caused holy beings from holy to evolve much faster than Lucifer had expected. Their faith in the omni-consciousness granted them what was needed to stave off Lucifer's onslaught. Remember when I spoke of how a greater being seeds the new root races? Beings such as Lucifer far surpasses our understandings of this feat. They move about by pure will to reincarnate throughout the known universe. Lucifer did this when he became one with Holy's evolution and merged his consciousness with them, creating a fraction of himself in the beings of Holy. These parts became his most loyal followers in the war in heaven. Then when he was losing and was about to face defeat, he did it again and reincarnated into Earth's evolution, merging with those born within that generation. Many events happened in succession after that. We evolved much faster than expected. Most of us were still too young and incapable of fully comprehending this. This is how Lucifer opened the door to the outer universe, a desperate move, determined to harm our evolution. But was completely thought out. In one event, Lucifer brought the war to Earth, and also chained the hands of the holy hierarchy from harming him. Beseeching to the higher council, the archangels asked for assistance during this time of the greatest threat here on the planet. They sought to cleanse the followers of Lucifer and the portions of beings here which possessed his impulses. They were even granted this at times, but this higher council was always concerned about prior life cycles that evolved before us and if it would disturb their evolution. The one we currently call Ahriman hails from the outer universe, which is why Lucifer did not initially see him as a threat. His incarnation was far less superior than Lucifer's. And Lucifer's intentions were just to fully evolve us through him and dismiss the outer universe's corruption. Through his blind arrogance, Lucifer did not see that the outer universe had greater intentions with Ahriman's incarnation. The outer universe was able to start seeding corruption faster than Lucifer could evolve us to fight off the infection, hence our current condition. We exist now with souls born with Luciferic impulse, outer universe's corruption, and thanks to Yahweh, Christ's impulse. Yahweh having a unique seeding of merging with all beings within Earth's evolution, being our planetary logos. I choose not to mention Saturn, Venus, and the Moon at this time. So now that the outer universe had access through Ahriman, the many evolutions between the three has been a constant battle to go through our evolutionary phases. Throughout generations we've called forth what we believed was gods into every society. Creating in-depth ancient text to connect to what? Well, connect to what we already are. We've called forth so many creations, but in reality, many were just the dark ones being what we believed at the times, straying our great ancient civilizations into destruction. The facts are just this, or we would be a society of fully awakened beings today. The metaphorical abilities of dark ones can literally become a complete patronage of deities, created through our entropic beliefs. A complete deified hierarchy, both good and evil, designed to pit us against one another, and we have fallen for these infections many times in the past, as well documented. Just saying this openly, I'm sure, is very hard to digest for some. But again, the facts are evident. If we were in a utopian sacred collective society, all would be fully awakened. There would not be needs, and never would there be suffering. As I've stated, dark ones incarnate in two dimensions which are active within our universe. The first is the dimension of Gorging. This dark one is a stationary solid mass. They initiate and grow through entropy, both the same way as strings of corruption connected to each infective being. Yet this dark one will compact its mass to solidify and dome those beings within. This dome blocks purely astral forms from entering. Greater beings here in Earth's evolution can move within due to our connections which come from the conscious within the center of Earth, our parent. This dark one creates the dome to continue its infection within, only moving and expanding as a unit after that. Chaotic and infective beings will always reflect the dark one's core personality. This one overbearingly protective of its area, we will find corrupted beings ready to fight to protect their society's fabricated honor. They will always develop into a military state, and as this dark one completely solidifies, it will always be built on power that acts with aggression and force without hesitation. This type of dark one will always be behind the centralized power of its corruption, but incredibly capable of never being found inside its mass. When it is secure in its power, it will develop leaderships and then move into a created dimension of its own to feed off the growth, even going into coma-like states, which is common for late evolutions of a dark one. They randomly will create avatars to report back what is happening outside of their protective fields, for harming an avatar does nothing to it. They will awaken if a chaotic being is in need, primarily just to view what is happening, for their modus operandi is to survive. Taking on this dark one will not be a simple feat. Great wars have been fought in our history where it took the complete takeover of the humans within the corruption to banish this Dark One away. The goal of the collective was to scatter and thin out this entity so that it lacked protection. If it gets away, there would be a host of holy beings ready to take on a battle many would never witness on the physical plane. These Dark Ones were once scattered throughout the world, for they are unrestrained by the outer universe and have on many occasions conquered each other, enhancing their singular-minded connection to the outer universe. We would need care and strategy to take on this Dark One, and a collection of greater beings to connect with higher beings to assist with chaotic beings within. We must learn to confront entropy on the spiritual and physical plane at once if we hope to free souls from its grasp. The next type of Dark One is from the dimension of defabrications, which is very different in form. This one is a very fast expanding Dark One which resembles scattered outstretched cords of thick black mass. It's constantly moving in groups of infected beings and can expand nationwide in size. It's generally seen as many factions as possible erupting in wars across a country, but is affecting everything in its wake and turning it into destructive energies. Even prime elementals can be influenced to help in its destruction. As fast as it comes into the world to feed and corrupt, it just as easily succeeds and then disperses, leaving the matted tangled cords netted across its terrain conquered. This one would be much harder for a team of greater beings to capture. Its form can be immense and the Dark One anywhere among the chaos. The closest representation of this Dark One would be King Solomon's account of summoning the 36 spirits, speaking in unison, in many forms. This is a sporadic, destructive entity and can usually be led by a chaotic being from the dimension of death when conquering human terrain. But will just as easily spread corruption and fear through great disasters, that take up far beyond natural areas. Most of us are forced to weather the storm and rebuild after the destruction is over. These Dark Ones are easily expressed as the legions from the great nomadic tribes in our history which traveled great distances with great amounts of killing in their wake. Higher beings possess the ability to safely free these chaotic beings. You might be able to see this in our historic records when after such destruction, these leaders completely turned course and became serene and peaceful. Angelic legions have developed an aggressive style of taking on these Dark Ones from different points in a precision strike we could barely fathom in physical forms. Its truest form is scattered within multiple parts of the netting. This Dark One can have hundreds of avatars consistent with their size, always active and manipulating the infected beings in their terrain. Greater beings will recognize an avatar form by knowing that this being is not connected to the conscious collective, and not corrupted. They will also be translucent swirls of black activity within the astral world, signifying a will to maintain its solidity. The last Dark One incarnates within the dimension of stasis. Unlike the other dimensions, this one is completely beyond the light of consciousness. It is a place where Dark Ones go into a believed deep transformative sleep. The higher beings have seen this before, only they made the mistake of forgetting about it as the universe continued the first time. Millions, billions of years could pass, then consciousness would find itself in a cosmic death spire none could sustain. An ancient one would be incarnated here. As spirits, we know there are some very real events that are occurring around us, but find it extremely difficult to transfer this within our scientific communities. As we awaken, science will eventually have no choice but to confront the evolving planet as it becomes lighter and more capable. We begin to outgrow form. We are still not fully matured. These things are obvious as we see how we still treat one another on Earth. How we tinker with science in areas we still won't view with spiritual consciousness is of concern. If we only fully understood how often these events have occurred on Earth, how fragile and vulnerable we truly are stuck in this physical plane, perhaps we will commit to freeing ourselves from it. Realm of Destruction. The realm of destruction is the incarnation of the Ancient Ones. These are the dimensions of dark matter, compactions, and absorptions. I have considered not giving much here, perhaps at a later time. Forgive me, but this is an unforeseeable future for us. I for one will not postulate it. I have thus far given all that we need for our current path. Hopefully I set some leaps within our own personal journeys. I have understood for some time now that we haven't truly had a modern means to place all that we have learned throughout the centuries into a singular universal understanding. Hopefully, this presented enough for us to now move forward, together on the path. This will conclude part 2 of the known universe, covering now the collective and outer universe. Thank you for listening. Peaceful journeys. If you enjoyed my podcast, please consider helping my progress in any way. Please feel free to contact me, or subscribe, find me on my social networks, share, like, and of course any monetary assistance will be placed back into my work. I am a new author of just under a year and have really made my work completely within reach at just 99 cents on Amazon Kindle. The information is more important than anything, but everything helps in a collective way. Thank you again.